Hi, sweet honeybees. I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about what has been happening to me and within my life since losing my mom in such a horrific way. Some people may understand, others may not. Um, my suffering has brought me back into balance with spirit, my personal soul, as well as the great spirit that connects all of us. Some people call it God, some call it source, some call it spirit, some call it the universe, others call it energy. To me, it's all the same. It's just different titles to explain the exact same thing. I've gone through a spiritual awakening and a conscious awakening through the death of my mom. Everything happens with purpose. Grief is something that has the potential to unlock deeper levels of consciousness, connection, empathy, wisdom. And that has definitely been the case in my own life, as I have been having all kinds of wild spiritual experiences take place ever since the day she was killed, honestly. She visited me in my dreams that day, and I didn't even realize until this year, when I had my deeper awakening, what had happened. She was coming to say goodbye to me. I also had spirit speak to me the day that I found out she was missing. I remember crying in a hammock. I had just dosed myself with some very strong acid and got the phone call, and I spent 2 hours crying in my hammock. And then when I just felt like I couldn't take anymore, spirit spoke to me and told me, get up and dance for her spirit. Dance to the heavens for her. And experiences like this has continued throughout the years since her passing. A lot of people I know probably think I'm absolutely crazy. But if you're a spiritual person, you understand that the universe has a very special language. God has a very special language and way of interacting with us, and our loved ones can communicate with us once they pass over. You know, this 3D physical world is not all that there is. In fact, I've come to understand that we, in essence, are pure consciousness. We are light beings. We aren't these physical 3D vessels that we currently inhabit. And we come here to have the experience, to feel. And I've come to learn that, grief is a gift. It's hard, it's very painful, yes, but ultimately, grief is a gift, because grief is the gift of love. If we didn't have love, we wouldn't have grief. So what's that old saying? It's better to have loved and lost. It goes for any loved one. Love is a very powerful, beautiful thing, and if grief has to be a part of that, then so be it. It's taught me how to have deeper empathy and compassion for other human beings that may be going through extremely difficult circumstances in their life. It's taught me to value life more than I ever had before. I had several attempts at ending my life before losing my mom, and since losing my mom, I haven't had one, despite the fact that it's just been all these awful things happening to me. And it's because losing her taught me to live my life more fully, that life is fleeting. time is precious. And sometimes I really dwell in my suffering and my grief, but sometimes I need to feel that because it means I loved her. It's just part of the process, right? I had a really interesting experience today. I was kind of having a hard day, so I decided to go to the park to take a walk. And afterwards, I ended up going to this coffee house called Awaken House. As I'm waiting for my London fog, I happened to notice that there's a jar of honey sitting on a shelf that has a bee on it. And I look up the company that had made the honey, that the honey came from. And on their Instagram page, I journaled it because I journal like crazy. Their Instagram said Psalms 119, 103. How sweet are your words. Now, I am not a Christian. I just don't like to put my spiritual beliefs into a box, into a category, because I draw my beliefs and my perspectives from multiple different belief systems. I just take what resonates with my own personal soul. But when I tried to type into Google to get the rest of the verse, I put it in wrong, and I put in Psalms 119, 130 instead. The unfolding of your words gives light. It imparts understanding to the simple. And all of this came from a bee, which is kind of my thing. Electric honey pot, you know. I've got a bee on the back of my phone. I just got to save the honeybee's license plate because of all the synchronicities. And I thought about, as I'm going to a bookstore, I thought about how my suffering brought me back to spirit. And right after I saw that, I thought about how I should make a video about that. And I saw a license plate that said 222. 2 is an intuition number. It's also an alignment number for me. And I passed that car. I had smiled and acknowledged that I saw the 222, and then another car pulls out beside it and it says 222 as well. And I was like, okay, so when I get home, I'll make this video. Well, I'm walking into this bookstore at 2:22 p.m. and I go to the philosophy section, and I notice that they have a couple of different oracle card decks. One of them, which has been in my wish list, this nice Rumi oracle. And I shuffled the cards, and the Cloak of Christ came out. I realized that I forgot to put one card back in the deck before shuffling, and it was the Blood Angel. And I read the Blood Angel part in the book, and it literally said to perform the ritual of the Cloak of Christ. Just all the synchronicities. And that's when I saw a second deck, and I decided to grab it. It's the Artist's Grief deck. I know that my mom was inside that bookstore with me today because I have been really struggling with my grief recently. And cards have been a massive part of my personal development and spiritual awakening over the last year. And so I had to buy this deck. I got home and I shuffled the cards, and the first one that came out, it's the heart, and it's blue. And if you know anything about chakras, blue is the color of the throat chakra. It's all about communication. And this card is titled Grief and Love. If in grief we feel the intense loss of a loved one, it can help us to remember that love is an infinite resource. The love we feel extends not only to those people, animals, or spirits who are with us, but also to those who have gone before us and are still to come. And it says, don't limit yourself. Love is an infinite resource. And it ties in with what I have been discovering about grief being the gift of love. Grief is love. It's the painful part of love. But it exists because love exists. And that's beautiful. And it's just learning to look at your grief from a higher perspective. Everything's happening the way it's meant to be happening. It's not a goodbye forever. It's a goodbye for now. And our loved ones are around us every single day, and they live on, not just through us, but through the world that's around us. They interact with us in the most peculiar ways sometimes, but if you slow down, you'll start to understand that there's no such thing as coincidence, only synchronicities, or at least that's what I've come to learn on my own personal journey. My mom was with me in that bookstore today. I fully believe that. And I hope it brings comfort to other people to know that death is not the end. We're all going to die one day. It's the inevitable of life. But we're here to have an experience. And that experience is going to be full of good things and bad things. But we can choose how we perceive those things to be. Oftentimes, the bad things contain great gifts. If you just pause for a moment and observe it, ask questions, try to understand it rather than judge it. We listen, we don't judge. Everything is love. Even the suffering. And I know for a lot of people, suffering leads to disconnection to spirit. It happened to me for a very long time, and it took me a long time to get to the point that I'm at now. But we're loved so much that we are given these experiences in order to learn how to evolve and love unconditionally the way spirit does, because spirit transcends the human labels of good and bad. Literally everything in existence is spirit, and it all has a place. The bad stuff tends to be better teachers than the good stuff does. The bad stuff teaches us how to become better people when we don't allow the experiences to break us down. And one can't exist without the other. Just my thoughts. I hope you have a wonderful night.